Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Jewett. I'm an IFBB Pro, and I'm documenting my prep for the New York Pro, which I'm now 13 weeks out. For your returning guys, welcome back. Updates for this week have been quite a few, in a sense that a lot has changed just with me without changing the program. So, and I'm going to let Matt go into some of this, but last week I was 240. Right on the dot. Previous week I dropped 2 pounds, so I haven't had any diet changes in about 2.5 weeks. I've been on the same plan Matt gave me. So it's basically 6 meals, and they're all 50 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, 7 grams of fat, and around training I have about 80 grams of carbs total and a 50-gram protein shake as well. And I do cardio 7 days a week for 30 minutes. So based off that, the past 2 weeks I have just continued to make change, and weight has been dropping. This past week though, I did have a slight increase. I jumped back up a few pounds. My legs were just kind of inflamed from training and doing cardio. That dropped back off, and I came down in weight some. And I did have an injury happen this week. So I was training quads. It's my third exercise. I was doing split squats, and I had some minor to mild strain in my rectus femoris, so the leg that was back. And actually I have all this on video, so we're gonna go through my quad training, and you're actually gonna see it happen, and I'm gonna explain some of my rehab side of it too at the end of the video. So that kind of changed the program in a sense that I'm not able to do cardio, and training is kind of limited now. But I don't think that's stalled progress, because I still was 237.8 today. So weight has still come down roughly about another 2 pounds. So I will be able to resume cardio tomorrow, so that should keep things moving along. So there's not going to be any drastic changes this week. I'm going to stay with the same diet plan and just reintroduce cardio. For the rest of the video, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. He's going to go over about coaching and what a good client-coach communication should be, and how an experienced coach should be gauging when to make changes on the diet plan. We'll go into my quad and training, and then I'm going to go, I travel up to Austin, Texas to Neufit to immediately try to get my quad worked on, and I'll give you some explanation on that. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Matt.
All right, what I wanted to talk about this weekend was actually, I missed last week, so it's been on my mind. And this goes for both the athlete and also, coaches, any coach that's listening to this. Just something that is kind of what I talked to John about last week. Basically, the main change that I made to last week was that I wanted him to start updating me every 3 days. And the reason for that is that within us knowing that he has to make a weight, I don't want to be negligent and just not make changes often enough. But I think there's also a real value in having patience during a contest prep. And that's what I want to talk about today, because yes, we know for a matter of fact that he's got to weigh 212. But at the same time, if every time in a matter of a 2 to 3 day span that John didn't make progress, if I made a change, whether that be more cardio, whether that be less food, whether that be increasing energy expenditure in some way, we're going to be 6-7 weeks out, and we're not going to have anywhere to go. So then it's like, then if he gets stuck, then what do? We just hope that something happens. So a great example of this, last weekend actually, John's weight went up. He traveled some, he trained legs, and he trained legs hard, and his weight jumped up. So, if I didn't have as much experience, and there's a lot of experience for me to be gained still, but I think there's a great value in just letting things ride out sometime, having patience and just letting them ride. So his weight jumped up, and it was like 241, 242, and then he had a big drop. He had a big loss. So there's a lot to be gained in just every time an athlete doesn't make a change, don't feel pressure to have to induce a change within the programming side of things. So, that to me, I think is a value that, is a lesson that we all can continue to learn, continue to remind ourselves of, because we have so many tools like in our contest prep toolbox. And every time that something happens don't feel like you got to grab another tool to try to make a change. You know, that's something that I think it takes a mature athlete, it takes a mature coach to kind of realize those things. But again, if you do that, if you grab a tool every time progress isn't completely linear, you're going to be 6-7 weeks out and there's going to be no more tools to grab, you know? So just remember that. Obviously you guys are going to get a lot of updates this week from John in terms of what's happened this week, but in the midst of his injury, in the midst of what's happened to his quad, you know, I still don't think that there's very much reason for us to change the course. You know, just because he wasn't able to do cardio the last few days, I didn't go further pull down food because again, his body was already clicking. His body was making progress. So I'm somebody that tries to always view the glass as half full when it comes to an athlete's progress. So if the plan was working, even though his energy expenditure might be a little bit less, I'm still going to just trust that the plan continues to work unless proven otherwise, you know? So that to me, I think this is more of like a hypothetical thing. Like this isn't like a research-based video that I'm doing this week, but it's more just as I've gained more experience as a coach, I think there's a real value to just being patient, you know, and not always forcing a change, just allowing the body to do what the body does. I've seen so many times where somebody's hit the same weight 4 or 5 days in a row, and then without making any change, all of a sudden they have this big drop. Whether that be a better night's sleep induced a drop, or whether it was just their body finally let go of that fat. You know, there's different reasons for it, but at the same time, just don't be so headstrong or so focused in the sense of I got to make progress to keep pushing changes when in reality the plan will work. Sometimes it just takes patience for it to fully come through.
Alright guys, we're here at the Muscle Factory. This is my quad day. It's one of the first leg workout of my week. Second one's hamstrings. On the quad day, I have a workout A and a workout B. So I rotating exercise those days, but the setup is generally the same. So I'm still starting with 2 compound movements that are my benchmarks for if I'm progressing in strength or if it's dropping off. After that, we'll go into doing a little bit of higher rep work and then also some isolation movements too. So let's get started. Set up for these hack squats. About mid-platform, and feet are slightly narrower than shoulder width, and toes are just angled out just a little bit. Taking the narrower stance, you can't emphasize more quad sweep that way. With a wider stance on these, you're going to hit more adductors and start bringing some glute into it. So I think a narrow stance is better for quad sweep, and generally that's what you want to be working. We'll execute them with a slow eccentric, slight pause in the bottom, and then explode upward. Everyone's setup's going to be a little different. If you have long legs, you're going to be generally higher on the platform. Some forward knee drift will happen, but I wouldn't let your knees go past your toes. That's just a general recommendation for them. So what I'm doing here with hacks is I'm just warming up. I'm gonna keep warming up, building up to a max out set, somewhere between 5 and 8 reps. For me, for hacks, since I go up pretty high in weight, you generally do about 4 warm-ups, just building up. So 1 plate, 3 plates, 5 plates, 7 plates. And then for 5 to 8 reps, if I can do more, I'll go more. It's just an all-out set to failure. So if I hit 9 or 10, that's fine too. I just know for next time to adjust the weight to drop my reps down. So that'll be my first set, then we'll drop back in weight and do a lighter set from there. All out again to failure. Right now, last time I did 7 plates and a quarter, but this feels really good today, so I might jump up to 8 and just see how many reps I can get there. Set one. Exactly what I'm looking for when I'm trying to do set execution. Controlled, so I'm using the intended muscle group. I'm still, it's not that I'm not progressing in weight. It's still a lot of load I'm using, but keeping it strict is not point A to point B. It's very intentional and precise, the types of muscles that I'm trying to focus on here. So I hit 9 reps on that one. So I'll reduce the load. I'll go back to 7 plates and do another set to failure. So that was my last set. This work set number 2. Hit 12 reps with 7 plates. So that was my higher rep set. I'm done with that. Move on to banded leg press. So my second movement on both my quad days is a leg press. I'll do a 40-degree leg press a day. The other day I'll do a pendulum leg press. The goal of this thing is to get good load and tension throughout the full range of motion. With the pendulum leg press, it already has it just set up mechanic-wise to do so. With 40-degree leg press, it gets easier towards the top. So that's why I use bands on this leg press. You still get a heavy load at the bottom, then as your mechanics get better towards the top of the lift, the band resistance kicks in, and so you get good tension throughout the full range of motion. Still the focus is on kind of quad sweep area, so there's a closer stance, narrow the shoulder width, toes are angled out about 20 degrees. I control the weight down, slight pause on the bottom, stopping the weight on the chest, and exploding up. 2 warm-up sets here. On this one, I'm working up to like a max out set of somewhere between 15 reps, and then I'm just going to stay with the same weight for 2 additional sets. So if you are truly going to failure, those reps are going to be dropping on subsequent sets. So last time I did 6 plates and six 300s on each side and a quarter for 17 reps, so I upped the weight this time, and that was 17 reps all out, everything I had. People ask about what can you do to keep your legs on prep. This is it exactly here. Taking and training all out to failure and giving them the stimulus they need to retain, just like you did in the off season. So set 1, hit 17 reps, so I matched what I did last time, but I went up about 50 pounds. So it's definitely a PR. So 2 more sets. So on these split squats, my first movements are bilateral compound movements that are good to progress on. I like to always have a unilateral movement if you want to count a split squat as one, because you still do have 2 feet planted. But it does bring some balance to the leg, having to kind of balance one leg at a time. You can also plant and push off your active leg with the heel on the outside of the foot and use more quad sweep that way. This movement will of course bring more glute into it, since the hips extend backwards and you're having to perform some hip extension. I jumped into my work set here. We're doing 3 sets just with the same weight, aiming for 15 reps in the first set. The reps will probably drop as I continue. I don't go all out on these just because of the stability issue and the risk of injuring a knee. So I'll get pretty damn close to failure, but not quite there, just for safety reasons. But I will take, for rest periods, a minute between each leg. So I get some rest before I go from right leg to left leg and vice versa, just so you're not cardiovascularly compromised and fatigue early for the other leg. Alright guys, so I'm back in my apartment. So like you just saw, an unexpected injury happened. I felt something pull in my left leg, the leg that was back when I was doing the split squat. On the second rep, I adjusted my foot backwards slightly, and when I went down, I felt something pull in the upper thigh, which I think most likely it was like my rectus femoris. And I think that because that muscle crosses the knee joint and the hip joint. So when I moved it back, it stretched it out a little bit farther. And then once the knee flexed, it just felt like a ton of stretch. And at the very bottom, when I went to push up, the load and stretch, it just was too much and just let loose. Something that was just completely unexpected. Sometimes I know before an injury is about to happen, you feel tight, you haven't been recovering, stuff just isn't as pliable as usual. This was unexpected. I felt great in the gym. Actually was hitting PRs on all my lifts for the day. So right now, just icing. I'll see how it goes tomorrow, the next few days, how bad the bruising is, how bad the inflammation is, and go from there and see how it affects prep. So the next day after I've hurt my leg, day one, I'm heading up to Austin, and they have a place called Neufit up there, and they're doing something different with electrical muscle stimulation, EMS. It's not like a TENS unit. It actually is trying to mimic the signal that the brain sends and activate muscle, but the way it's activating it is for lengthening. So if you ever have a tissue injury and muscle is torn and it's starting to tense up and ball up and you get these knots, the signal that they're sending with this machine is causing a lengthening to occur. So actually, if you can get right on it, it can make the severity of the tear not as much and speed up recovery as fast as possible. And so we're gonna head up there. I'm gonna go let Garrett, the owner, he's gonna explain some stuff, and then also show y'all just my evaluation and what we're gonna do going forward.
What's up, everybody? I'm Garrett here at Neufit in Austin. John made the drive all the way up here so we could do some work with this quad. So we're going to go through our evaluation process and try and get a sense of what's really going on in there, how bad it is. We've got, it was originally kind of scary, but he's moving around a little better today. Hopefully not quite as bad as we all first feared. And once we go through our evaluation process, then we're actually going to do a little bit of work and try and help speed up the healing process. So you'll see we're going to do a few muscle tests, try to get a sense of how bad it is, and then we're going to do a diagnostic process with our device here. And the cool thing about it, it's going to allow us to scan around on his body, and if there's any areas where around that traumatic injury, if there's any areas where his muscles are bracing and all the tissues are locking down around it, it's a protective response, but they'll actually be blocking, as they contract like that, be blocking the blood flow in, bringing the raw materials and nutrients in, going to be blocking the removal of all those waste products. And so we want to find exactly where those patterns, those reflexes are neurologically, and then teach him to break out of that pattern so that the healing process can go as fast as his body will possibly allow. So what we're using, our device is the Newbie, and it's unique. It's a type of electrical stimulation, so it looks similar at first glance to some of those other, like a TENS unit or some of the other devices, but it's a lot different in terms of the waveform, the technology, the effect it has on the body, and then because of that, the things that we're able to do with it. So as opposed to alternating current, for instance, this direct current allows us to preferentially promote eccentric contractions, help muscles lengthen out rather than shorten like they're fighting against the signal, which they'll do with pretty much everything else that's out there. And it allows us to do this diagnostic process. It's more, as opposed to just causing muscles to contract, it acts more like a sensory signal, the same signals that happen when we move naturally. So it allows us to do this diagnostic process where we can scan around in his body and send the same signal as if he was actually moving, like he was an early human moving, even though he's injured, having to get away from a lion, so to speak. If there's any areas where his body is blocking that movement signal, then it's going to jump out and feel more intense to him as we scan around, and so we'll be able to identify exactly where he has any flaws or deficiencies in his nervous system and how it's working to control the muscles.
So that was my Neufit experience. It was extremely effective, and I'm now on day 5 of the recovery period, and I've been up there twice so far, and I've regained full range of motion in the muscle, and I'm starting to strengthen it again too. So that's why, like I said in the intro, I am going to be able to resume cardio now. And with the stimulus from the machine that provides, I won't have any atrophy. So for my ham day, that was this past Saturday, I actually went up there and they hooked me to the machine, and I did one of their workouts, and the stimulus is so strong. It's you don't need a lot of heavy load. Like some of it was just isometric contractions, body weight. I did some dumbbell stiff leg deads, and I usually use like 130s. For this, I just need 90 pounds, so I can load a lot less weight safely and still train and not have it to affect my quad too much. But I should be up and going really quick. So I did get a good question on last week's video. Someone was asking about my thoughts on cardio affecting leg size while dieting down. And that's a very good concern. It basically what you're talking about is concurrent training, and the stimulus that cardiovascular exercise causes in the muscle versus the stimulus that weight training causes impedes each other's signals. There's some crossing, so you have to make a calorie deficit. So I think that should be your first focus, is through food, bringing your calories down. Some cardio should be in place just for cardiovascular health, and we're going to have to get lean. So you have to balance out having cardio in and how much you need to do and how much you're going to pull away from food. And so I try to make sure that my sessions are far enough apart and I'm not having to do my cardio post workout. Also, the type of cardio that you're doing is important. For some people, HIIT cardio, it won't be too taxing. I talked about this in my first video that I did, HIIT versus steady state. And for a lot of people, HIIT is great because it's such a high intensity. It trains a lot of muscle fiber, and you go through similar range of motion that you use during your weight training. So that tends to hold tissue better. For some people, bigger people, it's just way too taxing on the nervous system. Well, it's easier to overtrain. And some people just can't put that intensity level forth to do HIIT also. So if you can't do HIIT, for steady state cardio, I would still stick to cardio that mimics weight training the best, those range of motion. So incline walking the treadmill is probably the bottom of my list, and I would say sticking to like the spin bike or recumbent bike, something that has a lot of hip flexion, or even the Stairmaster, or if you had like a or what are they like the cross arc trainers. That's what it is. That's almost like a sprinting motion. I think that would be ideal. And also, just like I showed you in my quad workout, it's maintaining your exercise intensity with your weights, trying to keep the load up. That's the most important thing, is your weight training is the stimulus to keep your legs around. They may get flat, and that's okay. You can go flat as long as you're still trying to drop body fat. But the training, keeping your strength up, is the most important thing. So if you need to back off some intensity techniques like rest pause sets, drop sets, supersets, keeping some rest between working sets, that's what should be done to maintain that strength during training. That will help keep your legs around while you're dieting. That's it for this week, guys. Leave any comments below in the description. Make sure you like and subscribe. Also, next Monday, my full website's going to be launching, j3sportsrd.com. It'll just have all my clients up there, all my information about my coaching information. And then also, April 1st is my plan date to launch my membership site, which I'm going to try to have full explanation of whether you're from beginner to advanced, on how to start with your bodybuilding, nutrition, whether it's posing, training, everything. I want it to be a full resource for people to go to and get that. So those are the things down the pipeline that are coming up. But stay tuned. Next week will be 12 weeks out, and I'll see you then.